So thanks as always for joining us for a product update. So obviously we're going to cover PhoneView version 7.0. And just to be clear, this is a preview session, so we haven't published it officially for general download and general use. There's still, a few T's to cross and I's to dot, etc. But we are, as part of this session, we'll be making it available for beta testing, and details are in this session about how to get the software and how we can give you early access to some of this functionality. So that's part of the content. Agenda for today, just the usual kind of house rules, usual reminder about who we are, in case you don't know. The PhoneView 7, the key points that are new are Softphone Support. That's our kind of headline item, something that's been asked for quite a long time over the years, and we've had kind of ways of doing it, but I think we've got something that's useful, which obviously I'll take you through, and hopefully you agree, fingers crossed. And the next thing we'll have is a completely brand new thing out the sky. We figured out how to do this, and we actually think it's quite interesting. Again, hopefully you will too. And we've come up with a way to do virtual endpoints, which includes two-way audio and video. Oh, 2 seconds. Oh, thanks. Hannah just helped me there. My accent was getting in the way. I'll slow down a little bit. I do get carried away when I'm excited. So just to recap the new functionality in version 7, the first thing we have is Softphone Support. So that's the ability to work with hard phones and soft phones now instead of just hard phones. We have a new capability, which is the ability to register actual real devices all from a single computer, which we're kind of badging as virtual endpoints. Details we'll cover in the session. They also include two-way audio and video, so that's quite powerful. Another new thing that we've been able to add the capability to this version of software is the UCCX agent support. That allows us to integrate with a corresponding UCCX system attached to the cluster and get agent state data. And on top of that, we can even have some virtual agents. So you can have test agents, you can, place calls, answer calls, set agent state. Now, one statement I do have to be clear about up front is this is a technical session. We're going to be demonstrating functionality that is under a separate license model, which we have not confirmed yet. We will obviously do that once we get to the kind of shipping version or shipping release date, which is end of January. However, we are making all of this functionality available to anybody in the near term, just until we conclude the commercial. So just to be clear, there may or may not be a charge for some of this additional functionality that has not been concluded, but in the meantime, we're allowing everybody access to this capability, and I'll tell you how to request it at the end of the session. We'll then talk about just how you configure this new functionality, and then that will lead into the demo, the Q&A, and we'll finish off with some conclusions and just a brief recap of any future events. Okay. In terms of the house rules, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you could submit your questions during the session using the WebEx interface. This is an old graphic. This is from the version of WebEx I was more familiar with, where you would click the Q&A panel and submit your questions in there. But you're all pretty switched on people. I'm sure you could do that better than I can. The session will be recorded, and you can email sales@unifiedfx.com, and it might take us a day or two just to get it all downloaded and prepared. But we'll give that over to you once it's ready on request. Just a reminder to submit questions to all panelists, please, because I struggle to answer questions or type and talk at the same time. And we'll, as a minimum, we'll do our best to answer all questions kind of by the end of the session. And, depending how the timing goes, we'll try to finish on the hour, but, we'll run over. We're fine for time if anybody else wants to hang on if we do have a lot of questions, but we'll see where it goes. A quick recap about UnifiedFX. A few of those people might have seen this before, but we've got 3 main products. We've got PhoneView, which is on the Cisco's Solution and Center program, so you can get some discount if you resell it. As part of that, it's therefore Cisco compatible. I think the last version we tested against was 12.0, so it's all up to date. That's particularly powerful endpoint management, and we have quite literally millions of Cisco phones under management with that software. And obviously, we're going to elaborate on some new functionality that's now being added to PhoneView. FX. That is nice and simple, easy to use, easy to set up, very cost effective, and incredibly fast real-time data for UCCX. Some of the work that we've done in Wallboard is what's going to allow us to do some UCCX integration with PhoneView as well. So I've got a kind of shared code base between the two of them, which is helpful. Another piece of news is we've actually submitted Wallboard FX for compatibility testing. That's still in progress. We've had some positive feedback, but nothing official yet. So hopefully we'll get all that done and dusted by our Wallboard FX 4.0 release webinar. So dates and stuff at the end of the session. But keep an eye out for that if you've got an interest. And then finally, we have Migration FX, which is on all the programs, all the tick boxes. So it's on the Migration Incentive Program. So that's the one where you can trade in 100 phones and get a copy of Migration FX for free. Obviously sell it too, and it's on the Cisco price list. It's also SIP approved as well. It's obviously Cisco compatible too. A new thing which we're obviously pleased about is we now have finally, took a couple of years to get there, but we now have a patent for the zero touch mechanism. So there's the details of the patent number. So if you're ever bored, look up that patent number and read all that terminology. I didn't write it. Thankfully, the patent lawyer did, but it was hard to understand that kind of language, to be honest. But anyway, we're really pleased that we've got that. It helps to kind of confirm the uniqueness of that capability. Right, so let's dive into the new capability in PhoneView. So we've got Softphone Support. That's probably the thing that's been asked for the most. We've got things we've done beyond that, which nobody asked for. Well, not nobody, but not a common requirement. So we'll see where that goes. But in terms of supporting soft phones, what we've basically done, in some respect, is quite simple. Is we now import soft phones from Communication Manager along with your hard phones. That now happens part of PhoneView and PhoneFX. And the way that we work with those soft phones is leveraging something that we actually released last year, maybe the year before actually, which was the screen rendering and CTI remote control. But we really did that for speed improvements and speed options and the ability to work around, lack of screenshots and stuff like that. But part of the reason why we did that rendering capability was because it also works incredibly well for soft phones. So it's CTI-based remote control. That allows us to take the CTI state information and render kind of an emulation of what the call experience looks like from the end user's point of view. It's obviously not going to look the same as the user's interface, but it has the key data that they're seeing, just presented in a different way. And there's a whole bunch of CTI actions and operations you can perform, and you can see by the arrows there how that gets exposed in the PhoneView user interface. So you can use, for example, the universal keypad and dial away the number and initiate the features. So that's the CTI remote control aspect of it. Now, the reason why we didn't really jump straight in with soft phones, even though we kind of could sooner, is normally when you're using CTI control, or when you're using CTI control, the user has to be online, right? And that's still the case, at least in the simplest terms. The device has to be online, and normally that would mean that the user would have to be online. And that's okay, and that's useful in some situations, but there's times we want to test things or try things out when the user's offline or not available or can't log in or something, awkward like that. So it's been able to do, and that's what a lot of this new capability I'm going to talk about in the subsequent slides is about, is the ability to work with Jabber devices in particular, even when the user is offline. And the way that we're able to do that is we can take that user's Jabber device and register it locally within PhoneView. Right? And I'm going to elaborate on this the best I can. And I might repeat myself a little bit at points just to try and cover it from different angles. But technically, we have embedded the Jabber SDK or Softphone software inside PhoneView. So PhoneView is no longer just a remote control tool. It's actually a soft phone as well. And those soft phone devices are Jabber devices technically. In terms of using that capability for soft phone support, what that means is you can control a user who's logged in with their Softphone client and against their session, that's great and that's helpful. But if they're not logged in, you can use effectively the embedded Softphone that's built into PhoneView and register that user's device quite literally with a single mouse click inside PhoneView, and then same thing using PhoneView perform those operations. It's actually less remote control then, because obviously the device is registered inside PhoneView and you're seeing it and driving it, but technically it's still the same CTI remote control that you use, so it's seamless whether or not you've registered the Softphone locally or if you're driving it far end. That's fundamentally how we've added Softphone support. Now, some of the scenarios and benefits effectively that we think that covers is it allows you to work with hard and soft phones together in a single interface. So, you can have 1,000 hard phones and 200 soft phones, and you can see them all together and place calls between the two, etc. As you'll hopefully see in the demo, and do like video calls and things like that, which is good for testing. This means that you can do remote assistance. So if the user is logged in to their Softphone client and having some challenges, dialing, accessing voicemail or receiving calls or something like that, then normally, there's nothing wrong with this obviously, but normally you'd use a PC desktop sharing session so you could see their remote computer screen and see what they see exactly, and that's great. You can obviously still do that. It's probably the preferred way to do it, to be fair. However, there are a number of situations where you cannot do that. It might be a completely different team, there might be access levels, might be restrictions and things like that, or just other complications. Whereas if the device is registered with Call Manager, because we can then CTI control it, that allows you to use that communication mechanism that's already established and known to work with that user's instance. So therefore, you're expanding your options. You can obviously do desktop sharing as you might do today, but on top of that, you can also just take control of the actual application itself without anything to do with the user interface. Now, one thing that we weren't too keen about without this local registration capability, and if you could only ever control the far end party, the actual user's device, we think that was quite disruptive, so we didn't really think that would be acceptable to just put a tag on and say, yes, we support soft phones. But when you're doing this, the user has to be online, and you're going to really annoy them because you're going to get their soft phone making calls, and without them really realizing it, that you're controlling their computer in some small way. So we think that the ability to take that user's device and register it locally complements and simplifies that. So effectively, it's non-disruptive, which is the key term that we're using here. So that means that if the user's online, offline, or whatever, doesn't really matter, you're going to remotely control their Jabber instance. You're going to take their Jabber instance, register it locally, effectively within PhoneView, and then test and drive it from there. So that means the user doesn't have to be online. It opens up the kind of use cases quite a bit wider. But the key thing on that bullet point is that it's non-disruptive. This obviously means you can test users' Jabber devices when they are offline, because it is basically a full Jabber client. You can test and validate third-party call control applications, so anything that works with Jabber devices, CDI controlling them, doing like monitoring and recording and stuff like that. It's a real device built into PhoneView, so you can test it that way too. Obviously, the way a lot of people do test user device configurations for Jabber endpoints is basically take their own personal Jabber instance and on their Windows computer or something, and just put in different credentials or choose different devices all the time. Perfectly fine, a bit cumbersome obviously, but time consuming, and obviously doesn't work at all well if you're trying to do more than one at a time, because then you need lots of computers and stuff. So it avoids all of that, which is nice and convenient. And it also means that you can obviously inject and record audio and video, because it's just another soft phone running on your computer, and just use standard Windows apps to do that. And just to be clear, at this point in time, we have not included audio and video recording inside PhoneView. You would need to use an external application to do that, but it is something that we're obviously considering in the future. Now, moving on from soft phones and how we work with them, a logical extension is this built-in soft phone component that we've managed to add into PhoneView. And the way we're kind of packaging it is as a virtual endpoint. But what it technically is multiple real Jabber instances, real softphone clients on a single computer. Now, that's something that no one's ever managed to do before that we're aware of, right? There's other companies that have done maybe third-party SIP clients and other things like that, but they're not real Jabber devices. They're just low-level functionality. So that's what we're quite excited about the fact that's even possible. And we hope that this and the opportunity to play with the software might open up some interesting use cases. We've obviously bullet pointed a few in this slide deck, which will kind of cover things that you can at a high level do because of this capability, but we're really keen to find out from our customer base, etc., what other interesting use cases that are potentially unlocked with this capability. Hopefully there are a few. Ultimately, we've got multiple real Jabber instances built into PhoneView now. The great thing is we keep these things flexible, so it supports multi-clusters, so you can have multiple local Jabber instances all together at once, and you can have some against one call manager cluster, some against another one. So therefore, we've got multi-cluster support. Even if you were to try to do some of what you're doing with your own personal Jabber instance, there's a lot of hassle to log in and out as different people. We've made that as simple as we can. We've got it down to a one-click registration process, or in fact, even easier. We even have an auto registration feature so you can tag certain kind of virtual devices, so to speak. So when you open up a DVD file, can launch PhoneView, etc., they will just register themselves. So that's part of the plan behind it, how it works. Another thing that we've built into the virtual endpoints is the ability to auto answer, which you can obviously turn on and off for each of these virtual devices. That's great. You can just have a number of them registered and turn auto answer on, and then use them as test destinations to call into, knowing that they'll answer automatically, etc. In the future, as I'm kind of touching on, there's things we're looking at where we could auto play audio back and stuff like that. There's maybe some things you could do with some third-party apps, but again, curious to see what people come up with in that respect. The actual virtual endpoints, because they're real Jabber instances, you can be controlled by CTI just the same as any other device. So obviously that's how we work with them inside PhoneView and PhoneFX. We use that existing rendering capability and universal keypad concept. But obviously, if there's other third-party applications that, who knows, click to dial type things, etc., that you want to test, you can test them with these devices too. And each instance supports two-way audio and video. This is something that we've spent a reasonable amount of time on to try and make it as flexible as we can. I'm sure there's a little bit more we can do ultimately, but I'll give you a quick rundown on some of the main points. You have the ability for each of these virtual devices to have its own media configuration. So if you want to, you could leverage virtual audio video drivers. There's a few vendors out there. We've got a slide to give a few samples that you can look at. And with those virtual audio video drivers, you can map them up to individual instances, and you could have a bunch of virtual devices all using the same one pairing of kind of sound card microphone, another group with another one, and then you can play audio into one or the other, etc. So you get complete flexibility because you can assign this media config on each individual instance. You could have one-to-one, for example, if that gives you most flexibility. One thing you can also take advantage of, because these are, again, real Jabber devices, you can actually listen to them as well. So you could have a virtual device stood up, and using PhoneView's own remote audio feature, that can be in a call, that virtual device, and you can actually listen in from another virtual device or somewhere else, etc. So lots and lots of flexibility. And because these have two-way audio, as anybody who's used their remote audio feature before would be aware that it's that was a one-way audio feature, so you could listen but you couldn't talk. But now, by leveraging the virtual endpoint capability, you can actually talk back as well. So that means things like coaching is now possible as well, which is great that we can do that. As I kind of touched on already, you can combine with virtual audio video drivers. Some pretty complicated things you could stitch out of that one, I'm sure. Do some interesting things. And as I said before, you can just use standard audio video apps to play and record to and from those virtual endpoints. So for example, you could have 5 virtual devices, and each of those paired up with a corresponding speaker and microphone virtual device, and all lined up one by one. And then you could have individual playback and recording to each device if you wanted to. We'll be interested to see what people do with that. At the moment, we generally recommend, from a capacity point of view, this is maybe separate from licensing, from a technical perspective, we generally recommend a maximum of 10 instances of these virtual endpoints in a PC. We want to be quite conservative at the moment. It's quite a lot that can happen with those instances, as well as PhoneView, if it's all on the one computer. So we're kind of hedging our bets and playing it safe to kind of stop at 10 to start with. However, in testing, we have managed to get 50 virtual devices on a single PC, and there's maybe some plans we've got in the future to expand on that. One point I would like to make is the way that we've implemented these virtual endpoints, they're really designed for feature testing as opposed to capacity testing. There's other tools and techniques out there to do capacity testing. If it's just straight calls you need in quantity, without the functionality, that would be a lot simpler to do than standing up, lots of concurrent soft phones. It is something that will probably expand into to some degree in the future. Will depend on demand from clients. Obviously, we have ways of doing it. But so far we think 10 is actually a very sensible and useful number to have, certainly from a feature testing point of view, because if with 10 virtual phones, you can effectively do a conference call, 3 parties on each cluster across 3 different clusters. That's 9 instances basically. So it'd be pretty hard to push beyond some of the most complex scenarios, with the exception of going into scale, obviously. So again, we'll be interested to see what kind of feature testing people would like to try out with that capability. Now, some of the scenarios that these virtual endpoints allow you to do, or for me, actually, that first bullet point's the most interesting, because what we've effectively been able to create is a single solution for interactive testing. So there's different ways to think about testing, and the phase that we're in right now with our capability and libraries and stuff like that is that we're still interactive testing. And that's kind of what PhoneView has always been great for, testing things in real time, that real-time view of your phone estate. That obviously is a nice natural extension, having these virtual endpoints in there and interacting with those too. What we're planning as a subsequent phase, next year timescale, is allowing that to be automated and programmatically driven as well. We've already done a lot of work in that space as part of our AutomationFX platform and a kind of developer tool set that's built around that. It's not something we've really officially released publicly yet, because there's still a couple of things that we want to finish off. But as part of the kind of future AutomationFX platform concepts that we'll be releasing, this will be part of that as well, I'm certain. So therefore, we'll be able to do what we can kind of add into PhoneView in terms of interactive testing, and subsequently that allows to do some automated testing in the future, where you don't need to drive an interface. You'll write some code or create a script or something to trigger it. That's down the line. Some key advantages is there's no need for multiple PCs or physical devices when you're testing. You don't need to grab a bunch of phones, put them on your desk. You don't have to spin up, 2 or 3 test client virtual machines and put a Jabber instance on each one. That's all gone. You can do the whole thing on your own computer, or a stand-up computer you put somewhere for testing purposes. So again, convenience and simplicity is the theme here. This allows you to test multiple Jabber user devices together. When I was showing the Softphone Support component earlier, where you could take one of those Jabber devices and register it locally to test that individual user, imagine that you multiply that up and you do that with 2, 3, 4, 5 Jabber users together. Then you can see how those calls between those devices and users would interact through that single software environment. You can test more advanced features like monitoring and recording. So if you have a call recording system that's recording calls on Jabber endpoints, you can spin up those endpoints virtually and make sure those recording systems capture the audio as you expect, etc. You could obviously perform some complex dial plan and feature tests, as I talked about a little minute ago, like a 3-cluster conference call, for example. You can obviously, place calls between the clusters because of that multi-cluster support, and make sure your audio video calls are being routed and transported, negotiated as you would hope that they are between those clusters. And again, back to this convenience factor, there's no need to keep reconfiguring a single Jabber instance. It's literally one click or even automatic. So we'll make that as simple as possible. Okay, so that was the virtual endpoint side of it. The last couple of slides are going to talk about the UCCX agent side of it. Now, from our for our PhoneView customers or anybody who's kind of familiar with PhoneView, you should hopefully be, of the mindset that PhoneView is useful and flexible when it comes to hard phones. So now extending that into soft phones, that's great, gives you a few other scenarios you can cover. But we've gone a little bit further and we'll figure out a way to also work with a UCCX platform all in the one interface and just combine the data in there. And I'll hopefully get some time to demonstrate that for you. But here's a few of the highlights of that capability. So first thing is we've added in some extra columns into PhoneView. So in the data view, that big table that we have with all the kind of phone information, we've done some database querying on Call Manager, and we've aligned the configuration. So if you configure certain devices and users, etc., as agent extensions, we correlate that in and we populate it into these new fields. Basically, there's agent ID, so that's the user ID of the configured agent on that particular phone, the extension number that for an IPCC point of view it's been specifically configured, and its current state. To maintain the state, we have a real-time live connection to UCCX, which you configure against that cluster. And that little screenshot there, that kind of second box down, is showing you the kind of tree view that's in PhoneView, the bit where you kind of click and filter. There's a new entry in there called agent state, and it gives you an instant real-time summary of the state of all your agents. It's quite handy, actually, and interesting. The next part is the ability to log in or log out any UCCX agent. And I mean any agent, not just virtual agents and things you specifically set up for, PhoneView maybe. This is all the agents on that cluster or clusters, you can specifically log them in or log them out. Obviously, for real agents, it would be the actual username and password, so that you probably wouldn't really be logging in a real agent phone very often because you need to know the password to do that because of the way the credential system works. However, where this really kind of comes into its own, as you'll see in the next slide, is when you use it with virtual agents, that gives you the ability to just create dedicated test agents and quickly and easily log them in and set their state. A point to note is the library that we use is shared with WallboardFX. Part of the work that we've done this year to get to Wallboard version 4 is we've updated the code that we use that integrates with the UCCX platform. We actually rewrote it from scratch as a separate library, put a lot of integration tests around it as well. And that's the kind of new code that's in version 4 of Wallboard, and that is what's going through for IVT testing. So that new code is specifically getting tested against by Cisco at the moment, and it's the same code that's now been added into PhoneView as well. So you've got that peace of mind that we've put a lot of thought and effort in testing into this UCCX integration. And as part of that, we've been able to add in high availability support as well. So the other bullet points here, you can set the state of any UCCX agent because of how it works. So, we're just including these features for flexibility. Ironically, it kind of makes PhoneView a little bit of a powerful supervisor tool. I don't know if the user interface is maybe suitable for supervisors. It's maybe a bit too complex or powerful possibly, but it's something that we're interested in exploring. So again, anybody that has a scenario where a supervisor might get some benefit from this would be interested to talk to you. But ultimately, you can drive the agent state as well. And again, it supports multiple clusters, so you can have multiple UCCX systems all together at one time as well. Keep it nice and flexible. Okay, so building on the virtual endpoint side of it, and the fact we now have UCCX integration as well, we can therefore create virtual agents too. So this gives you, a bit like we said a minute ago, a single solution for interactive testing, but in this case, interactive testing of your UCCX system. And effectively, all you're doing is combining these virtual Jabber endpoints I was talking about earlier, and UCCX enable them. And what we mean by that is, on the communication manager side of it, you set them up as an agent, as you would do any other agent, you know, a Jabber UCCX agent configuration. And then inside PhoneView, you can obviously register them, you can control them and see what they're doing. And because of the UCCX client code that we've built in, you can then log them in and set their state. So that basically gives you all the core components that you need to have a full virtual agent. And you can have multiple of them. So a good use case would be having multiple dedicated test agents, you know, piggybacked off of those virtual endpoints. And that allows you to have a couple of extra agents you can add in and out of queues or script destinations and stuff like that, and just work with them completely independently, non-disruptive again, without you know, causing any bother with the existing contact center operation, and just make sure everything works as you expect before you commit it, basically, because you can do end-to-end testing all in one application. This means you can handle and validate all your UCCX calls as you would want to. If you look at the slide there, there's a big kind of long screenshot at the bottom. You hopefully get to see that in the demo in a moment. But ultimately, that's 4 phones, 4 virtual agents, technically. We're rendering them, so we can see there are 2 on a call. The little kind of person icon in the bottom left corner of each kind of screen picture there with different colors, that is representing that it's an agent phone, and the color represents its state, basically. So you can see blue is idle, red is not ready, green is ready, and yellow is talking, if I remember correctly, or reserved, something like that. So you can see a lot of information in one place, makes it nice and easy to see what's going on. Now, some of the scenarios that this allows us to cover is the end-to-end testing of a UCCX system. So that means you can test, validate your UCCX scripts or the kind of IVR interactions as part of that. I'll hopefully be able to demo that in a minute. You can test your ACD and agent skill routings, you know, that if a person chooses a certain option that they land in the right queue and all that kind of good stuff. You could test your queue overflow, make sure that if it's going from one queue overflowing to another or coming out the system into a hype group or some destination, you should be able to test all of that in one place. Supervisor operations, so maybe the supervisor is monitoring or recording or something a user, you can do that with a virtual endpoint because it's a real endpoint if you want to test that out. Hence, you can test you know, monitoring recording systems or components as well, again, because it's a real software. There is, and a key point here, there is no need, maybe I've said this already, but there's no need for multiple PCs or even physical devices. It is a completely software-based solution for end-to-end testing of a UCCX system. You know, just try and make it as simple as possible all in one place. Now, that's the new functionality kind of described. I've got a couple of little things I want to cover before I go to the demo. One of them is how we've exposed this configuration wise. So it's basically as part of your advanced configuration. I maybe missed a little bit of detail on this bullet point, but you basically go in and edit your cluster in PhoneView, which is group edit, cluster name. Then you have to click the advanced mode option, which you're seeing the screenshot of there. Within that advanced configuration, we've got 2 new tabs. We've got a Jabber tab. And within that, you populate a dedicated Jabber end user. It must be an end user, and it must have association to any of the Jabber devices that you wish to register within PhoneView. Otherwise, it won't work. Now, there's a little number there called registration limit. That's one of those license parameters we're still to decide upon. But ultimately, I don't really expect in the short term for this to ever go above 10. It's probably going to be 1 or 10, depending on what we kind of license or give out. You only really need one to work with soft phones, because you can just take one user soft phone, register it locally, test it. When you get to 10, that's when or multiple, that's kind of when we're talking about multiple virtual endpoints effectively. But the key thing is it has to be an end user with association to those Jabber devices. In terms of UCCX, again, we've got another tab there just next to the Jabber tab, and it's just nice and simple. You populate the UCCX host information in there. If you've got multiple hosts, because it's high availability, it's just a comma separated list. And what I've done is I've created a little text information, excuse me, inside that panel, just to give you a kind of brief overview of what that feature is and what you need to do, kind of thing. And if we've spelled anything wrong or not phrased things very well, or you've got some suggestions, then we'll be happy to take them on, maybe having a nice way to describe that setup. Now, I think this is my last slide before the demo, if I remember correctly. One of the things I wanted to kind of just make it available, or highlight really, is because we now have these multiple virtual endpoints and they can be wired up to any sound card device that's on the system, something that gives you incredible flexibility is installing some virtual audio or video devices. Now, we don't endorse anybody yet. We've done some testing with these products and they all seem to be fine. But what we'll probably do at some point in the future is home in on one or two vendors or particular components as we've done more testing and kind of make some recommendations. I'm actually hoping what we will eventually do is create our own product and tooling specifically around the audio video side to complement PhoneView, but we've not started that work yet, and we kind of need people to play with this new capability and tell us that it's useful, and then it's worth the effort to go down that path. So we're kind of waiting on feedback really before we commit to anything too heavy in that terms of effort. But something you can do yourself, because it's separate, because it's just devices, is have a look at these virtual audio sound cards and stuff. One I did find particularly interesting, and this was when you get to more complex scenarios, was this multi-device recording concept. Now, I've just shown you the simplest one, which is called Voice Meter. They've got some crazy product names. They don't stick FX on the end of everything, so I don't like it. That's a bad start. I like FX on the end of our products. But what they've got is Voice Meter Banana, and Voice Meter Potato. Potato is the one with the biggest inputs, right? I'd love to know how the guy came up with those names, but then I can't see anything because our names all end in FX. But anyway, check that out. Okay, I think I've finished on the slide deck side of it. So fingers crossed that smooth transition to the demo. Now, I've not had any opportunity to look at the questions, so I'm sure there's going to be a few to get through, I hope. I'm going to leave them to the end. I'm going to do my best to get through this demo kind of cleanly and kind of quickly. I've got some notes I need to follow to refresh my memory, so let me look them up for a little second. And I do have some crazy audio stuff I need to do, which might give us a little echo, so we'll see how that plays out. But for now, let's just do some calling and tell you what I've got. So what I'm running at the moment is PhoneView version 7 with all these extra features unlocked. I've got 5 Jabber devices, technically. That's the top row and 2 on the left on the bottom row, and 1 real phone as well. On the right-hand side, I also have a normal Jabber client, right? This Cisco Jabber client here. And that it's on the same computer, but I'm trying to represent a remote user. But rather than having lots of computer screens trying to share via WebEx, I've just installed it on the same machine as PhoneView. It wouldn't normally be the case. I mean, I'm sure you might have your own Jabber instance on the same computer as PhoneView, but and you could use it any way you want. But this is to represent a front-end Jabber device in this use case. Now, the key thing is that Jabber device there is this Stephen Welsh Jabber endpoint. And what I should be able to do is control that Jabber phone, but from PhoneView, right? Now, let's just make sure I'm typing the right number in here and see if that goes out. So what's happening is I'm placing a call out to Mohammed's desk phone. So I might see Mohammed in a little second. His phone, you can see him, I'm talking through before I answer it. So from PhoneView, I control the Jabber instance, which is this little program over here, which would normally be in another user's computer elsewhere you wouldn't even see. It's ringing a normal desk phone, which is video enabled. I'm now clicking that desk phone and I'm clicking answer to accept the call. Might just take a little second for it to all negotiate and connect. And there we go. Say hello, Mohammed. There we go. So we can see the local Jabber video. We can see the 8800 series, what's Mohammed seeing on his desk phone, etc. And we controlled it from PhoneView. That's it. There you go. I've managed to do a remote party Jabber endpoint and call into another physical phone in this case, right? Let me hang up. So I can do that either phone. I can control the physical phone and hang up, or I can control the Jabber user's phone. I'll do the Jabber user. I just click end call here. And you can see it disconnected it. So no cheating. We didn't touch the Jabber client at all. We did it all via CTI within PhoneView. Now, what I'm going to do is, so that's the user online scenario. The user's now going to come offline and I'm going to take control of that Jabber user. Now in testing, I did muck this up a little bit. I think I just done it again. So give me a little second. Try and do that properly. Because I think what you kind of have to do, I think exit's enough. I could be wrong, but we'll find out in a little second. Actually, do you know what? I think I will do it. Sign out. That sounds a bit more conclusive. I can't remember what we did in testing when we were doing this. Oh no, that must have been right because it's kind of re-logging in. Just couldn't be bothered by having to re-enter the credentials and stuff. So, but let me do sign out. As I say, that should be a bit more conclusive. For that, there we go. So let's get rid of that. I think the little program's still running. So let me just try and kill it completely. Okay, so hopefully I've killed that Jabber client completely if I've done it correctly. And this would now represent an offline scenario. So the user's not available, so you can't control their endpoint to do tests and stuff like that. So instead, what I'm going to do is take their user device, a Jabber device, and register it inside PhoneView. So what I do is I right-click on the phone, and there's a few additional menu options. So I'll get register, auto-register, auto-answer, and local Jabber media. These are the 3 new options, right? They're only possible or available on Jabber devices as well. The one I'm going to use is register. So when I click on that, you'll see a couple of entries in the activity log there. This is us spinning up an instance of the Jabber softphone and passing the Jabber user and all the relevant information to it, and it's now registered. Now, it might take a little second, but the screen rendering, which is where we use the CTI state, that will have to kind of reinitialize a little bit because technically the device has gone offline and back online as we've brought it online. But hopefully, if I press enter, yeah, we can see it's now going off hook, right? So we get back dial tone effectively. Now what I'm going to try, but I might get my audio mucked up here, is I'm going to try to unmute it. Right, hang on a wee second, yeah. Oh man, I wish there's a better layout than this one. Which one's which? What participant window? And who's talking? So let's change. I may go silent for a second. We'll see what happens. Hopefully you only hear me once at the moment. Yep, oh, got a thumbs up, fantastic. Let's try this. So if I go off hook, oh man, I've muted the wrong thing, I'm sure I have. Who's that? That's that one, that one. It all went so well, but it wasn't for those pesky kids. Ah, as if by magic. I might get a bit of echo though. Let me try that again. Off hook. Dial tone, excellent. Call Mohammed. So Mohammed's phone's ringing. Select it in PhoneView. Oh, I did it for the wrong device. Maybe an empty. Let me start that again. Hang up. I'm going to do it from the Stephen Welsh endpoint because that's the one I had registered remotely. I've now registered locally. Let me make the same call again effectively to Mohammed's endpoint. Choose that phone, answer it, and this time it's audio only. So Is it? Oh no. I know it starts off as video, it's just the way the SDK works. But I'm going to turn on video, and that's what it is. So I've set up a call from a locally registered soft phone inside PhoneView to Mohammed's phone. Maybe getting a little bit of echo here. I right click, local Jabber media. It's currently audio only. If I change it to include the video device, then we now have video as well. And what I'm trying to demonstrate here is it's just the same thing as having that Jabber client that the user was using, but it's now part of PhoneView. So we can see we've got a pop-out window. It's got the name of the device and its extension number on there. I've got the preview window for the local video. We've got a couple of kind of tools on here you can use to hang up the call and stuff like that and mute. And we can see Mahatma's phone, and you see the video transmitted from, yep, this camera here. Obviously, there's a bit of delay with the screenshots on that phone. Yep, there we go. I was waving too. Excellent. Thanks, Mohammed. So if I now kill this window, because it's in a call, it's just asking us to confirm. Yeah, we want to do that. Kills the window, kills the call. Again, it's all part of PhoneView's capability. Just for simplicity, I'm going to flip that back to audio for now. Right, wait to check my notes. So that was showing you controlling a far end Jabber instance, taking that Jabber instance, registering it locally, and placing the exact same call with and without video. Now let's do a couple of calls between virtual endpoints, right? No hardware required, so to speak. So let's go up to this Jabber device in the top left here. Now, all of these I've already registered. So if I right click on it, you can see the register tick boxes there. Now, what I can do, and I might do a little bit of this actually, let's do it on this far end one. I'm going to go to the top right, and I'm going to enable auto answer. Let's see if that works. I right click on it again, you see the checkbox is now turned on there. And let's go to this guy here. Let's type in its destination, so that's 75002. So from the left-hand phone to the right-hand phone, call and see what happens. And there you go, it auto answered, no other effort required. Get a bit of echo on that at the moment. So let me flip, turn video on. So we have video on one party. Let's try video on the other one just to make it tricky. Try to get that mic out of the way, stop the echo. So if I turn that on in both directions there, we're kind of halfway there, but you can see that we've got 2 video windows, and I think I've only got video on in one direction by the looks of it, so I probably have to establish another couple, but let's make my life simple, move on to the next thing. Just kill that, and I'll just go back to audio for now. And back to audio. So that's just a quick demonstration of the virtual endpoint functionality. So that was me taking 2 completely virtual endpoints, making calls between them, turning video on and off, that kind of stuff. It'd be a wee bit smoother if I didn't turn the video on halfway through the call, if I turned it on beforehand, but ultimately it kind of shows you how it works. The next thing I want to talk about is the UCCX integration. There's a couple of parts to this. The first part I want to show you is actually inside data view. So if we go in here and we scroll over, I'm going to show you those new columns. So we have agent ID, IPCC extension, and agent state. And the way we kind of get that data is there's a couple of extra tables that get populated in, say, call manager's database whenever you set the IPCCX extension. So when that's how you configure an agent, obviously. We just basically correlate that data back to the actual device that lines on, etc. We also can work, maybe not done as much testing as we'd like to yet, but we can also work with extensibility-based agents too, hence why we've also added in a device profile field. I've not really got it in this config right now, but that means it'll work with statically assigned to a device, or also via a device profile. We'll kind of find them via the device profile and populate the agent ID and IPC extension that way. So that's actually quite handy data. You can export that as well, so it gives you a nice kind of configuration dump of a UCCX set up on that cluster or clusters. The agent state component is the more interesting part, in my opinion. This is the real-time state of those agents. Now, that relies on that live connection to UCCX, and then as the agents go on hook, off hook, we change that accordingly. Now, if we go back to here, now I've just realized I think I logged these agents in earlier and they've kicked out, so I don't know if I did something else, but fingers crossed this will log in for us. So let me just try this out. So which ones are going to do? Let's do this Java FX1 device. So that's this agent login option here. So we click on that. It knows the agent ID, that you can't edit that because it's statically set. That's how UCCX works. The only thing you edit is the password, which is, remember, the last one that I've entered, so I can reuse it if I want to. Click login. And what you might have noticed is it briefly flickered in this agent state component. It went from 15 logged out to 14 and then 1 not ready. Okay, I'll show you these state changes a bit more in a second. Let's go to this one and we'll log in here as well. Now it's just the same password for these virtual agents, so it kind of makes it nice and easy because it caches the password deliberately. So I click login in that, and there you go. I've got 2 agents logged in, and you can see I've got not ready to. Let's make somebody ready. So right click, and that menu options now change because it's stateful. It knows that they're now logged in, and now your choices are change state to ready or log that user out. So let's go to ready, and we can see again agent state's updated accordingly. Now let's do some IVR calls, right? So let me just put that back to not ready. I'm just going to use this first phone, and if I remember the number correctly, yeah, it's 18000. Yeah, let's try this out. Now, again, if I get my audio set up correctly, you should hear this.
For calling.
Yep.
All of our representatives are assisting other callers at this time. Your call is very important to us. Please stay on the line and your call will be handled in the order it was received.
Great, so we're in a queue. Now let's take an agent ready and accept that call. So we go right click on this agent state, ready. You see it's gone yellow, it's presenting the call. Again, from PhoneView, I'm going to answer it. I might get a bit of loop back audio. Yeah, a little bit. But we can see I've got an agent call here. This guy, let's put him on hold. Don't know if that'll do me, just go and hold into the mic either, but we can basically see if we start the call into that agent. Obviously, there could be something a lot more complex from a queuing point of view, and you could navigate and choose a particular queue and make sure the right agent accepted the call, etc. But that just shows you've got virtual device, virtual agent working together. Let me show you some more complex audio scenario with that UCCX. Let me just hang that up. Now what I'm going to do is a funky script, UCCX script that I found online a couple of weeks ago because I was trying to find something for an interesting demo. And I was quite pleased to find this. I've forgotten the chap's name. I was going to give him a shout out if he turned up, but I think I couldn't find him. I know he's maybe downloaded our software at some point, but maybe give him a post credit to this. But you might hear his voice in a little minute. So if I choose again one of these virtual devices and I call in, and remember this is just two-way audio, and I'm hopefully going to demonstrate that to you. So I click call.
Enter your PIN code.
Okay, what's a PIN code? Nice and complicated. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Please enter the 4-digit number of the prompt.
So it's a prompt indexed by a number. Let's just do 5, 6, 7, 8.
You are currently working on prompt number
5, 6, 7, 8.
If this is the correct prompt, press 1. Otherwise, press 2.
It is, so I'm going to click 1.
Press 1 to play, press 2 to record, press 3 to enter a new message number, or you may hang up.
Okay, I'm going to record, so press number 2.
At the sound of the tone, record your prompt. When finished recording, press the pound key.
This is a test recording to see if it works. Fingers crossed.
Press 1 to replay your recording, press 2 to save, or press 3 to re-record.
I have forgotten already. 1 to replay, is that right?
Yeah. Replay your recording.
Press there you go. It's repeating it for me. So
let's
press 1.
To re-record.
This is a test recording
to see if it works. Fingers crossed.
There we go. That sounds quite clear, actually.
Press 1 to replay your recording, press 2 to save, or press 3 to re-record.
2 to save.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. Goodbye. Okay. I think that's all I had lined up from a demo point of view. Could have done a lot of other things, obviously. I didn't want to blow everybody away too much for myself, just be trying to figure out some really crazy, stupid stuff. But just hopefully gives you a flavour of what's possible. So if you bear with me a little second, I've got a couple more slides just to recap on, and then we'll see what questions there are. Okay, so just to kind of conclude, questions, we'll cover them in a little second. But just to summarise, and then we'll go into questions. The licensing commercials have not been concluded as yet. So as I said, it was a technical demonstration to show the capabilities we've added into the PhoneView software platform. How we specifically license that and any commercials around it will still be determined. But what we're doing, because we love new stuff and we like to share it and get some feedback, is anybody can try this out. You don't have to be a paying customer either. We probably prefer to be a paying customer, obviously, but you don't have to be. You know, we can set you up with a trial license, or even, you know, temporarily turn it on in a production key if you want to, and that will be available for full testing until we do decide any commercials around it, whatever they are. To request access, simply email sales@unifiedfx.com asking for the PhoneView 7 beta functionality. You can get the software now. That's the URL. It's just download.unifiedfx.com/PhoneView/beta. And you'll get the exact same version that I was running on my demo there. But just to be clear, the new functionality is not available unless we update your license key. So the code's there in the product, but you can't play around with it until you talk to us and we unlock it for you. Okay, so hence why you need to request access to new features by emailing us. But at any point from now on, you can actually download the software. Obviously, this is beta. It's brand new functionality. As much as we've done, you know, some stringent testing on it, there will always be little niggles and things like that that will iron out over the next couple of months. The general plan is to aim for release. I think it's the 23rd of January. There's the date there. Yep, 23rd of January. We might actually release it sooner because it's in really good shape, to be fair. We don't think there's really much to fix or sort out there. You know, that's kind of why we're sharing it out early doors to try and get that feedback. Before I cover the questions, that's just a quick note of the future events we've got lined up. I'll just give you a quick rundown of what they're going to cover. UnifiedFX, that's going to be a session just on that capability. Previously, when we've talked about it, it's been all part of PhoneView in some respects. So we're going to spend a bit more close focus on just that feature itself. That's 20th of November. They're going to do the same thing for PhoneFX capability. We're going to focus just on that. May not really be aware because it's not really advertising too much, but you can technically buy UnifiedFX and PhoneFX separately. They're also part of the enterprise license for PhoneView, hence a good value offering. But you know, for people on a budget or only have required that specific functionality, they are available separately as well. And that's part of the reason why we've got them on their separate WebEx sessions too, just to elaborate on that. WebEx, we're version 4, we're doing the launch on the 12th of December. As I say, we're currently through IVT testing. I think we've actually technically passed all the tests, but it's still to get rubber stamped and reviewed by Cisco. So you know, that doesn't mean it's all done and dusted yet. So hopefully we'll get some confirmation one way or the other by that date. We've got a really interesting thing that we're doing with a company we've been working with a little while now called Quasi. Now, people who are maybe familiar with UnifiedFX and some of the content that we've shared over the years have maybe heard about a thing that we call AutomationFX, where we have the kind of core technology that's built into PhoneView primarily, and we've built our REST API in front of it. We have a customer called Quasi who are actually using that functionality in a particular couple of use cases. So they have set all that up for demonstration purposes. So we're going to be able to do a joint demo together of their product and platform, working with an integration to via Automation FX, allowing them easy integration into Communication Manager. So it's something a little bit different. It's not just working with endpoints and controlling phones and things like that. It's not deleting ITL files. Let's put it that way. We all have. We've always had to do that over the years. So this is something a little bit different. So if you do get a chance, it'd be great. If you can get to that quasi session. Again, they should all be recorded. So if we can't match that date, just hit us an email afterwards and we'll get the recording. January, a recap on Migration FX. Nothing's really new and changed in there, to be fair. We've probably matured out a lot of things. And we've certainly got things we'd like to do, obviously. I don't think anything will have added new by that point in time, but it's mostly just a recap to make sure everybody's kind of familiar with it. We might elaborate a little bit more on some of the more powerful scenarios, such as the migration profiles, if those questions come up. And then the actual launch of version 7. Right, let me jump back. So 5 minutes over, sorry about that. So I'm going to jump into questions. Not sure how many there will be. We've got plenty of time on our side. I'll maybe quickly scan through them for the next kind of 5 minutes and see if there's any. If there's quite a lot, I'll just keep going until there's nobody left. Either no questions left or nobody listening. I think we'll stop at that. Right, okay, I've got them up over here. Let's get rid of that chat panel. So if there's any need to recap. Oh, yeah, excellent. I love that. A little bit more slowly for non-English people, please. I do apologise for the Scottish accent. Maybe if you get the recording. Oh, excellent question. So someone's asking if it's compatible with PCCCE. Not today, but very much in our minds, to be absolutely honest. When we put our Wallboard application together, that was the kind of first time with any deep integration with contact center technologies, even though, from an engineering point of view, very familiar with them. But, it's slightly different when you develop against a contact center platform against using one. So I think we've done a pretty good job with UCCX integration, all that kind of good stuff and use cases now. So I think, next year, I think we'll have a go at extending our libraries and integrating with UCCE or PCCE, whichever right terminology is. So not today, but we do think some of the things we can do is going to work well in that space. That's certainly thanks for asking that question, and hopefully we'll be able to deliver that at some point next year. Sorry, I think this one was maybe answered, but I'll re-stipulate it. Someone was asking if you can get Migration FX for free if you trade in 100 phones. That's correct. You have to do it a certain way, so it's not simple, unfortunately. Cisco do sometimes make these things difficult. You have to do it specifically as part of an MIP, Migration Incentive Program trade-in. And there's a certain structure and way that order has to get submitted. You can't just get any old new phones, from stock. They have to be, ordered from factory, etc. So getting the criteria right is sometimes a tricky bit. But yeah, that is via Cisco. Oh, excellent question. So, question: will the updated release of Migration FX allow migration of phones between clusters? Mohammed's answered all the, that and a few others possibly. But the thing is, yes, we would really, really like to do that. We have a bit of a plan, but we've not started it yet. So not today. It's on a rather large to-do list. But part of the challenge with that is doing it well. We generally like to do things as best as we can and that are relatively convenient and easy to use. And if it's not very apparent what a good solution is, we won't do it until we think we've got a good way of doing it. So that's why we've not progressed on that as yet. Soft phones, is Cookie Link supported? Very good question. I don't know if I can capture that. I'll maybe ask a little favour. Mohammed, see that question from Sue Fallon? Yeah, if you take a wee note, we'll get back to Sue on that one.
I think Pal was asking the same question as well.
Right,
so
perfect.
Yeah.
If you take a note of that as well, that'd be perfect. Yeah. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah, this is new for us, this Jabber integration. So there's things we probably can do, but we've not specifically tested yet. Someone wants a copy of the presentation. Well, yeah, we can do a PDF. Any inbound communication for these kind of events, it's always sales@unifiedfx.com, and we'll sort you out with whatever you're kind of needing. So yeah, we can get you a copy if you email sales@unifiedfx.com. Right, let's, is the import of softphone devices from CUCM to PhoneView configurable? Can you turn it off? I have a lot of softphones configured that if imported will bring over me over a license limit. We're going to take care of the licensing of softphones separately, so that will be configurable basically, yeah. Oh, yeah, perfect. I've not configured the new license parameters, expect a separate softphone kit. Yeah, perfect. So that's been answered in text, probably better than I did there anyway. Is the product support 9951, 9971 and other video devices? Yes, in terms of video support, yes, 9951, 9971. But when it gets into like CE devices, room-based systems and DX endpoints, we haven't got support for them yet. It is on our roadmap for CE-based endpoints. Again, that's something that's on the plan for next year, but things can shuffle around. But certainly traditional desk phones that are video enabled, yes, that's fine. How do you test Jabber when they're configured to authenticate against LDAP? So what you would have to do is actually have a real, well, actually depends on your version of Call Manager. If you're on the newer versions of Call Manager, which I think is kind of 10 and above, you can still have LDAP integration and a local end user, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was 11, but I thought they added that in 10. So that would be a solution to that. If that's not available to you, you would have a real LDAP user as part of that. It's not something we've specifically tested. So, if you do have that environment, we'll give you the software and you can try it out and we'll work with you to get that working. Does the CSF device count for a license? Yeah, it's been answered, and there will be a separate softphone license count. So we'll kind of park them to the side, if you know what I mean. If we then turn it off, can we manage them? Yeah, so it's basically an on-off switch. Include softphones, not include softphones based on your license. What's the minimum quantity of softphones? Yeah, just good answer, Mohammed. Just email sales@unifiedfx.com and we'll respond once we have an answer. What are current customers who can contact to go over some of the basic software? Yep, thanks for doing that, Mohammed. So yeah, if you're a current customer and you want to learn a bit more in detail, one-to-one or something, you can just email support@unifiedfx.com and one of the team will work with you to understand the new functionality better. By endpoints, are you referring to calls as well as Jabber? We do not run Jabber in an environment. Yeah, you can make calls with anybody. To use the virtual endpoint functionality, you do need to have a Jabber device and Call Manager, and you need some licenses against that. But even if you don't use Jabber as in give it out to your end users, there's nothing really stopping you from configuring, a few Jabber devices for test purposes, etc. So it doesn't exclude you from being able to do that. Yep, all UCCX versions are supported. I think the API that we use was introduced in way back. I can't remember those crazy old version numbers, but version 5 or something like that of UCCX. So it's kind of from those numbers all the way up to the latest. Okay, all right, just check. Is the agent state for the system or by queue or skill? It's I'm not really sure if I understand that question correctly, but the agent state is the same state you'd see in the Finesse interface, if that makes sense. So if you're logged in, if an agent's logged into Finesse and they've got like an ready, not ready toolbar option at the top in the Finesse interface, whatever you're doing in there is the exact same thing you would see inside PhoneView to see its state. And also you can change its state as well. And all this works for login and out of Cisco Finesse 2. That's right, you don't need to have multiple Finesse browsers. You can log in and out from there. Obviously, if you're logging in, you need the actual user's credentials, so hence why we generally recommend test sessions. Yep, there's a beta, which is available today, and production is end of the year. I think that's most of them. There's still a wee bit to scroll through. Can one license work across 2 clusters? Yeah, we're still to determine the exact thing, but we'll technically be able to do that. Install another PC. Yeah, you can move it around. Technically, from our software's point of view, you could have multiple copies of PhoneView as well to kind of get past that 10 device restriction, because that's more of a capacity thing. So there's ways you could work around that too. Let me check. Yep, ask her about that. I think that's pretty much it. Let me just check. Good upgrades. Yep. Can I manage UCCX and with our Java, or both or none? Both and one or the other, or none. Oh yeah, you can do one or the other or both. You can do both together, I suppose. So if you're talking about, you've got UCCX and you've got Java CSF devices, yes, you can work with both of them together, or you can choose to work with one or the other. So yep, it's all up to you. Another question asked about UCCA. Yep, so it is on our plans. Can they be run parallel with version 6? Yep, on a separate PC. Yep, I think that's perfect. Oh, geez, we'll still a couple more in a second. Nearly there. Sorry, we're over. I don't know who's left, but last couple. If connecting to multiple UCX clusters, an option to view triggers and ports in service. Oh, nice question. So not sure who that is, but right. Okay, so if you've got maybe this doesn't really matter about one or more UCCX systems, but the kind of question fundamentally is, can you see the actual UCCX CTI ports is the kind of question, and if they're on a call in a state? Excellent question. And the answer is technically yes, but it's not something we've exposed. So we'll maybe keep that one in mind. We have a beta capability we can unlock to show you that. If you're still around, probably not, but technically we have a way to actually see and even manipulate the state of CTI ports. So, you know, might be something to complement the UCCX, this new UCCX functionality we might throw in there too, as part of it. Cosmetic note, when you search for a device and then want to zoom in, it disappears off screen and you have to scroll to find it. I know, it's really frustrating. It frustrates us as well. The arithmetic behind the zoom logic is quite complex because it's all our own code. There's no built-in controls or anything, and it's been a bug. It's been a nuisance on our side as well that we've not been able to improve that. All that we generally tell people is a couple of UI tricks, which is if you do something with the device that you've found, it will then get recorded in the activity log. So if you zoom in and out, you can double click the item in the activity log and then it will scroll back to it, or you could research for it. But yeah, that is frustrating. I do appreciate that feedback. I know it's moving out, it's good. Is paging through phone supported in this version? So we do multicast paging via NotificationFX, which we'll cover in that other WebEx. There's maybe some things we could do with these virtual Jabber devices, but specifically they don't do paging at the moment. But yep, something we can look into. Right, I think I've covered all questions. I don't know if there's anybody left, but I really appreciate you hanging on, and thanks for spending some time with us. Oh, wait a minute, there's more coming. Fantastic. I do love questions. Is paging through phone supported? Oh, I thought I saw a question pop up elsewhere. Why am I not seeing that? Oh, maybe it's a chat panel. Oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong. Yeah, I didn't see that there. Can you remotely control Java apps on cell phone? I can't remember actually. That's a good question. Java apps. I think the answer is yes, but I haven't specifically tested. The way to think about it is, if it's CTI controllable, the answer to this question is yes. So it's not whether or not it's a capability or a limitation of our software. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think there's a slightly different device type, and I think it's excluded from an agent support point of view, so it might not be possible, specifically with the mobile client. But you know, if you want to investigate it, again, just hit us an email, sales@unifiedfx.com. We'll do a little WebEx and test it out with you. But it's all down to CTI control. Let me just check multiple soft ones. Oh, all right, that's a good question. Missed the part, how audio would work if multiple soft phones in one PC. I had a lot of stuff to go through, to be honest, and I had a bit of a plan of doing some clever virtual sound card demo, but never really figured it out in time. But the simple thing about the way that it works currently, or typically, is that all microphones and all speakers are one, right? So if I have 10 active calls on 10 virtual devices, 10 soft phones basically, if anybody talks in any one of those calls, you hear it all together. So it's like mixed together really through your one sound device, if it's the one sound device they're all set up to use. And the same thing in reverse, which is a little bit like paging to a degree, that if you talk from your microphone, that microphone is basically wired up to all those virtual devices. Every far end party across all those virtual soft phone entities will receive that audio at the same time. So it's like a broadcast. But what we did do is create an ability to map to different sound cards for different devices, so you can kind of split them off, or even go down to one if you've got enough virtual audio sound card configurations. But in simple terms, just all together, but there's ways to split it. Can the product cover that one? Kind of what the Java cosmetic for? Yeah, I think I've covered all questions now. So I'll wrap up there. 20 minutes over. Apologies for that.